Now we've come to the end of the road. This episode of Some Gadget Guy is brought to you by viewers like you. All the amazing people who share content on social media, and the incredible generosity of my patrons at patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy. More info on those amazing nerds later in the video. If you're a fan of the funky and you've been following other phones that are trying to do crazy things, the Surface Duos might have crossed your path at some point, and you're probably already aware of the news that's come out that the last update is getting pushed to the Surface Duo 2. This is a bendy, foldy, mini tablet convertible phone that has only been around for a couple years and was incredibly expensive for this hardware design. We would have, of course, appreciated a longer window of support. While I've been playing with numerous bendy, foldy, plastic screen devices, the Duos remain my favorite hardware form factors for really looking at multitasking situations. I still field a lot of comments on my Surface Duo videos just because of those differences in philosophy, where people might want one continuous larger square screen. For me, this was the perfect example of getting two apps running side by side at the same time. The Duos, and of course LG with their dual display cases, I don't know that we've really done better for multitasking. There are still so many good ideas here from the Duos that I wish Google were adopting directly. This video is going to serve as a bit more of a eulogy because really, there's not much to talk about with this update. System update available. The update improves the performance and stability of your Surface Duo 2. Update size 64.15 megabytes. So with only one major Android generational update, going from Android 11 to Android 12L, the Duo 2 goes out with a whiff, not with a bang. Let's go ahead and restart now. If you've been following my channel for any length of time, you know I've kind of become an insufferable wonk for competition. Less interested in talking about individual brands, and really more, are we really talking about different products consistently? Are we finding the right comparisons? Are we trying to line up the right gadget with the right consumer? The Surface Duos brought an interesting conversation to the competitive landscape. What you can do with a Microsoft-built tablet, they've got a lot of expertise that we could have learned better lessons from. Surface devices are some of my favorite PCs. I own a Surface Laptop 7 with that new Qualcomm chip, and the Surface Duo hardware is a very different conversation from what many of the other foldables are trying to accomplish. I feel like there's a direct genetic lineage between something like this and the new Huawei trifold, just because of the way that we have to work hinges and we have to account for different user scenarios. Historically, I don't think dual display has really gotten the credit it deserves, that you have glass panels here for your screen that have proven to be a little bit more durable and a little more scratch resistant than my plastic screen flips and folds. And there were a lot of funky things to deal with on a Duo, but just that glorious feel of getting one app up on one panel and then quickly being able to launch another app on the other panel without having to do other crazy gestures or long presses or menus or swipes. There's an elegance to this that I think a lot of our Android tablets would benefit from. We're getting there. Android 15 is showing a lot of promise, and we might even get floating windows in Android 15. But Microsoft got us there first on a build of Android 11. And I think it's important for us to keep in mind how we update our devices. It's another situation that I think techies have gotten really lazy at explaining the process of how different phones do different things. We just installed that last OTA, but I do want to see, because I probably have a Play System update. Let's see if there's something else that we can also kind of spruce up. Yep, Google Play System update available. See, this is what's kind of hilarious. So how we protect our devices, if you're worried about security, it's this kind of stuff that actually does help improve the longevity of a device, even if the manufacturer has stopped pushing out OTAs. Our last system update from Microsoft was 62 meg. Our Google Play System update, because I haven't run one for a little while, 82 megabytes. So what goes into the protection of the most common vectors of attack, like Android apps that aren't super nice, that come from malicious bad actors? I'm actually getting a bigger update here from Google Play. There's been this consistent sort of drumbeat in a lot of the Android conversations where we don't allow as much room or as much education for the products that use Android but really aren't trying to be Android. Microsoft is trying to make the best Surface Mini tablet they can. They made the hardware to put a Surface tablet in your pocket. This is a Surface first. It just happens to run Android. And I can already get comments from people. I already understand what the replies are going to be. Well, oh, but if you need to make the best tablet, you also need to make it gooder Android. And I don't necessarily see anything philosophically wrong with the idea of sticking with one build of Android for a longer period of time than our phones that we demand that yearly Android update. Samsung is making a very different claim and a very different promise than what Microsoft has tried to accomplish here. And along the way, other manufacturers have done similar things and I think have ended up with better quality and better consistency than just trying to force an Android update. Remember, this was doing things on Android 11 that we're still now catching up to on Android 15, because Microsoft went into the guts of Android, ripped a whole bunch of stuff apart, broke a whole bunch of things. It was really clumsy at launch, but by doing that, it gave us different capabilities and different expectations for how we would operate a different kind of tablet. It's a Surface device first. It just happens to run Android. It's a little bit of a tangent, but I just recently got into a conversation with someone recently about Motorola, where yet again, I heard those complaints about, well, Motorola doesn't do updates. They don't give you enough updates, which I do believe is true. I believe when you're spending premium money on an Android device that we should now be expecting more than 2 or 3 Android updates. But the thing that bugs me about commentary on a Motorola is how people will complain that you don't get timely updates on a Motorola. And that's actually not true. Just because you don't get a big, clumsy OTA every single month, it doesn't mean that a Motorola isn't being updated. Numerous system components from Motorola are patched and updated directly through Google Play. Not only Play services, but Motorola actually puts components like Ready For directly in the Google Play Store. So why would you want to wait for a huge OTA? If there's an update ready to go for Ready For, it goes directly to the phone through Google Play. HTC used to do this a lot too, where individual system components and the proprietary software, the pieces that make a Moto, and HTC would get updated directly. In many ways, Moto's strategy actually delivers a more secure and more up-to-date device than waiting for a monthly or bi-monthly OTA from another manufacturer. And circling back to this idea of security, well, you need all of these software updates and new operating system updates to have the better secure device. When TCL was working on the Blackberry contract, we got this. This is the Blackberry Key 2. I'm lucky enough to have the Blackberry Key 2 in red. You will never pry this phone from my cold, dead hands. I've got it written into my will that I will be buried with this phone. But like the Surface Duo, this is another example of using Android, but trying to make the best product they can, not the best Android device they can. It stayed on Android 8 and then it just kind of lived on Android 8. A lot of techies out there complaining, oh, well, it's stuck on Android 8. It's not getting updates. And what about security? But TCL and Blackberry worked really hard at carving up the Android experience to make the most secure device that they could. At the time that this phone was out, we would often put out these bounties, like, can you find an exploit? Or can you find some way to gain root access? Can you crack this open? Can we flash a custom ROM on this device? And to my knowledge, none of the TCL Android-powered Blackberries nor the Priv had ever had their bounties paid out. As far as I know, the customizations made to this phone, we've never been able to crack this open and develop another ROM to update this hardware. That's super frustrating if you were hoping to use a Blackberry longer. We're starting to fall out of support for a lot of apps and services for Android 8, but that should also speak positively of this strategy. Using Android as a backbone to make a Blackberry device, they made it incredibly secure. That means they were probably ahead of a number of the things that would have been patched by Google or by other manufacturers. If the whole point of your product is to make the most secure messaging platform device available, it doesn't really help you to keep knocking out new Android updates if you can't keep them as secure. It's okay to settle in on one flavor of Android, ride that out longer, and just refine what Android 8 had to offer. There are so many phones that I actually think would be better off if they didn't get the next Android number, but that manufacturer were still out there polishing up, putting out bug fixes and patches and security updates, that consumers better understood that relationship with Google, that a lot of their security and support are going to come from those Play system updates. They should be looking to update those more frequently. These devices last a lot longer than just that manufacturer's promise of, you get up to Android 15, then we cut you off. It's kind of not how computers work. I'm just really sad to see yet another Microsoft stop-start strategy. I don't know about y'all out there, but looking at Microsoft and looking at Google, I am exhausted by the number of projects that get kicked up, that don't get the marketing that they really need, they don't get the advertising they really deserve, but they still find a little core group of supporters, nerds like me who just love seeing the cool tech. And then they don't immediately find magic success because they didn't put together a strong advertising campaign over 3 concurrent generations of updates and products. And so they wither on the vine, and then someone else in the organization comes on to the product team and says, hey, you know what we need to do instead is something different. And then a product or a service just gets scrapped for a new kind of novelty, which then gets that same treatment. A little surge of interest, the company kind of backs it, they come up with something sort of cool, you see the potential, and then 3 years later, it's getting killed again. Every time I talk about interesting devices, I've got the Surface Duo and the Surface Duo 2 over here, it immediately recalls how much I've enjoyed other products. Like I've got my Windows phones, still some of the best devices ever made, and with hardware features that could still be competitive today in a lot of markets. But instead of sticking with a product category and iterating over time, Microsoft kills a division. And then a couple years later, someone else comes into Microsoft and says, hey, you know what we need is a good mobile strategy. So then they have to start from scratch. And they didn't have the software to be able to drive their own device. And let me tell y'all, I've been on this ride with Microsoft for a long time. I've been on this ride with Microsoft for a really long time. And now, wrapping this video up, here's the masochistic part of this whole conversation, this whole chat. I kinda hope Microsoft tries this again. I hate to say it, but they might be one of the only ones who could jump back into this space, even though I know they'll probably do it wrong, probably make some really dumb mistakes, and they'll likely break my heart for the 4th time. But they also bring a singular idea and approach to hardware design that our current market desperately needs. Competition is in a dire place, and no one can just jump into this market without an incredible war chest and a huge bankroll and the design and engineering expertise to make something kind of unique. And with some investment in that user experience, maybe even coming back to some of our previous metaphors for using the start menu of Windows as the home screen for a phone, we could bring the entire Windows experience back to a portable device in a way that we really haven't seen since the earliest days of pocket PCs. We have the chips now that are laptop grade powerful at like 10 watts, that we could at least return to the idea of a foldy bendy tablet, what fits in your pocket and helps you get your work done. I'm being entirely too optimistic there with Microsoft's delivery on something like that. I actually don't have a lot of faith that they would execute a strategy like that well, but they are uniquely in a position with all of the right pieces at all of the right time to finally give something like this a fair shot. Windows on ARM, a good low power ARM chip, and we could see something really special. Great emulation and support for x86 applications, a whole new round of ARM native apps that could run directly tablet style from a product like this, and something that could double up as your phone when you need that kind of communication. I talk a lot on this channel about trying to use our phones as laptop replacement computers. And I get a lot of pushback from techies on these kinds of topics. When we miss the point that the chip in this Vivo right here, if we're to believe all of these benchmarking scores and all of these tests that we run on these mobile devices, that this chip is running neck and neck with something like a 12th gen Intel Core i7 laptop chip. At full speed, this is using less power than that 12th gen Intel doing nothing. The beautiful thing is I still have both of my Duos. I have my Duo 1, I have my Duo 2, and even while I was picking up phones like the Pixel Fold, the first generation Pixel Fold, and the OnePlus Open, I was still regularly turning to the Duo as like my little mini kitchen tablet. I've got a recipe and a movie playing. They've been fantastic multitasking machines. We had something kind of special here, and it does make me sad that we're not getting different flavors of competition. I don't believe this pie is baked. I believe there's still plenty we can do with different form factors and different designs and different capabilities to meet the needs of different consumers. I feel that's enough of a eulogy. We can go ahead and wrap this video up, folks. As always, thanks so much for watching and sharing videos. That's the most important part these days. And it's nice when you subscribe to the channel and smash that bell icon and give us the likes and thumbs ups. I really wish I had a bit more time to kind of go back and revisit, do the nostalgia thing, because Nostalgia Bait also does really well on YouTube too. But it's just been kind of a chore keeping up with all of the current stuff that's happening in tech right now. But as I look to maybe revisit some of these products, I'll probably be putting that content up first for my patrons, all the incredible people at patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy. A huge thank you from the bottom of my heart, as these are the folks that are helping to keep the lights on here in the Gadget Lab. They get first looks at all of my performance testing and camera deep dives, and when we get something new and wacky to play with, they're going to get to hear about it first. Patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy. Now, you know where you can find me around the rest of the internet at SomeGadgetGuy, basically everywhere. But these days, I'm trying to spend a bit more time on the Mastodons, a lot less so on the Facebooks and the Instagrams, and definitely not on the Twitters. And I will catch you all on the next video.